the quiet moments between sleep and waking, Annie carries memories that aren't her own, or rather, memories from a life that ended before this one began. This is a documented account of a woman who remembers being Margaret, a teenager in the 1960s, who made an agonizing decision that would echo across 2 lifetimes. From her earliest days in this life, Annie spoke of things that shouldn't have been possible for a child to know. At an age when most children were learning their first words, she told her mother about living in a different house, one with a chimney on the right-hand side and ivy growing up its walls. She spoke matter-of-factly about going refrigerator shopping, leaving a bewildered mother to wonder how her daughter could remember an appliance purchased 10 years before her birth. These weren't fantasies or imaginative play. They were memories so real to Annie as any from her current life, preloaded into her consciousness like software on a new computer. But by age 7, she had learned a harsh lesson. These memories were not acceptable conversation. The adult world had no room for a child's recollections of another existence. When spoken memories were forbidden, they found another outlet. The dreams began, recurring visions of the same place, the same streets, the same neighbourhood. In these dreams, Annie walked through a city she knew better than her current hometown, experiencing her life through eyes that weren't her own. She understood intuitively that she wasn't herself in these nocturnal journeys, though the perspective remained stubbornly first person. For years, these dreams remained her secret burden, until a conversation with her husband in 2020 broke the silence. When she confided that she was never herself in her dreams, his surprise prompted a revelation. Perhaps these weren't mere dreams, but fragments of a previous existence, memories of reincarnation struggling to surface. The COVID-19 pandemic provided an unexpected opportunity. With time in her hands, Annie began meditating, hoping to unlock additional memories. For a year, nothing significant emerged. Then, in June 2021, everything changed. Listening to a particular song during meditation, Annie experienced what she could only describe as an emotional bomb detonating within her. In approximately 50 seconds, uncontrollable sobbing overtook her, accompanied by a gutting pain in her stomach. The overwhelming realization crashed over her. She had forgotten people who were desperately important, people she was supposed to remember. The frustration was maddening, knowing but not knowing, remembering but not remembering. Annie likened it to the early stages of Alzheimer's, where awareness of forgetting battles against the inability to recall what's been lost. This fear of losing memories had haunted her entire life, though she'd never known anyone with dementia and hadn't learned about such diseases until her teens. The breakthrough came on November 1st, 2021. After a trivial argument with her 8-year-old daughter, following roller derby practice, Annie found herself overwhelmed by emotion. Dropping her daughter at home, she told her husband she needed to drive to escape the crushing feelings threatening to consume her. During that drive, what she described as a download of information flooded her consciousness. She received specific instructions to search for women who were forced to give up children for adoption in the 1960s. The search led her to a book filled with accounts from women who had lived through exactly that experience. Reading these stories, Annie found herself recognizing thoughts and feelings as her own. The women's words would have come from her own mouth. The realization was instantaneous and undeniable. This was Margaret's story, her previous life's defining trauma. A month earlier, at an event, an older man had stared at her persistently, 7 times by her husband's count. Unlike typical social interactions where people look away when caught staring, this man maintained his gaze. Though it should have been uncomfortable, and he felt neither disturbed nor particularly drawn to him, there was simply a sense of familiarity. With the revelation about the adoption, another piece clicked into place. This man was the father of the child Margaret had given up. Annie recognised him with a certainty that transcended current life knowledge. She even sensed the child's name beginning with M-A-R, a homage to Margaret's own name. Through careful research on social media, Annie found confirmation the son, now 20 years her senior, bore a striking resemblance to his biological father. His name did indeed begin with M-A-R, and remarkably, his middle name matched his birth's father, an unusual honour for adopted parents to bestow, suggesting they acknowledged the significance of its origins. The memories reveal Margaret as a 16 or 17-year-old facing an impossible situation. In the 1960s, unmarried pregnancy carried devastating social stigma. Support systems for young mothers didn't exist. Annie sensed both parental pressure and circumstances that left Margaret with no real choice. The adoption wasn't just forced by others, it was forced by the reality of being too young, too unsupported, too trapped by societal expectations. Most painfully, Annie felt Margaret's complex emotions around the adoption, the crushing guilt of giving up a child, compounded by an even deeper guilt over feeling relief. Margaret had been ambitious for a woman of that era, with career aspirations that a baby would have derailed. The relief was real, and so was the self-loathing for feeling it. Annie believed Margaret might have brought the baby home for a few weeks, that she and the father tried to make it work before accepting the inevitable. Unlike many women sent away to homes for unwed mothers, Margaret seemed to have remained local throughout the pregnancy, another layer of complexity in an already agonizing situation. During a visit to a spiritualist community in 2022, intending a peaceful writing retreat, Annie was instead overwhelmed by an urgent need to flee. On the highway drive home, surrounded by streetlights that had always made her inexplicably uncomfortable, the sobbing returned with a revelation. Margaret had died in a car accident. The streetlights that had always caused Annie to flinch suddenly made sense. She understood her lifelong fear of tall structures, water towers, carnival rides, even changing light bulbs. The terror she felt as a child watching her mother repair that tube television. 6 years earlier, she had screamed and jumped back from an antique streetlight head in an architectural salvage shop, not understanding her own reaction until now. Margaret's last sight had likely been the streetlight falling towards her during the fatal crash. The memories brought no peace, only an intensifying awareness of loss. Annie had expected closure when she found Margaret's son on social media and saw his apparent happy life. But the longing persisted, an ache she couldn't define or satisfy. Like the famous reincarnation case of young Ryan Hammonds, who uncomfortably met his previous family, Annie faced the ethical dilemma of contact. Would reaching out heal or harm? After much deliberation, Annie made her choice. In a moment of opportunity, with the birth father nearby, she couldn't approach directly but managed to leave a note with her contact information. The ball was now in their court, leaving her to balance hope against the need to move forward. The parallel to a birth mother's experience wasn't lost on Annie, wanting desperately to be found while fearing the reality of contact, dreading rejection while yearning for reconciliation. She understood now why birth mothers from that era rarely surged. They'd been explicitly told never to contact the children they'd relinquished, that the decision was irreversible, that they had no rights to the lives they'd created. These experiences led Annie towards a new calling. Already working in social services at a macro level with communities and policy advocacy, she felt pulled towards mental health counselling. She recognised an undeserved population, people carrying past life memories who were terrified to share them, even with therapists. Her own fear of being labelled crazy when first discussing these memories with a therapist, who fortunately proved receptive, showed her the need for understanding professionals. The journey hasn't been without cost. Annie fell into depression as memories intensified, particularly when sensing that death memories were approaching. She stopped meditating for a period, hoping to halt the flow. only to discover that once open, the door couldn't be closed. Memories came spontaneously, demanding attention regardless of her readiness. Annie identified a potential trigger for a memory's emergence. In 2021, she had endured a difficult year with a 13-year-old stepdaughter, experiencing severe mental health crisis. The frustration of lacking parental rights to make medical decisions, watching her husband struggle while knowing what needed to be done, but being legally powerless, may have awakened Margaret's parallel helplessness. Both lives featured the agonizing experience of being unable to protect or make decisions for a child who desperately needed care. The patterns were unmistakable. Raised by a single mother herself, Annie understood parental absence. As a stepmother without full parental rights, she experienced another perspective on the parent-child relationship. It was as if she needed to understand every facet of this fundamental bond. Having a child, losing a child, lacking a parent, being unable to fully parent. Through it all, Annie learned to lean into grief rather than medicate it away. She discovered that the times of deepest depression came when she doubted herself, when she tried to dismiss everything as nonsense and force herself to get over it. Instead, she began allowing 20 minutes daily for grief, creating space for emotions that had nowhere else to go. The fear of death that had haunted her entire life shifted through this process. Understanding reincarnation brought comfort, though she acknowledged the difficulty of carrying such intense emotions while previous life family members still lived. She described it as watching them from a soundproof room through two-way glass, able to see but unable to communicate, reminiscent of Dorothy trapped in the witch's tower, calling to Aunt Em through the crystal ball while remaining unheard. Today, Annie continues her training to become a counsellor specialising in past life memories. She recognises the need for professionals who won't dismiss or pathologise these experiences. Her work in social justice and advocacy against oppression, a theme she's identified across multiple past lives, has prepared her for this new chapter. The memories haven't brought the closure Annie expected. She still doesn't know what she truly wants from potential contact with Margaret's son, now a man 20 years her senior with his own established life. She struggles with how to explain to her own children that she longs for a child from her previous existence. The complications ripple outward, touching every relationship. Yet Annie has found meaning in the journey, through meditation, education, and connection with others who share similar experiences. She's transformed isolation into purpose. The woman who once sobbed uncontrollably at forgotten memories now prepares to guide others through their own past life revelations. Margaret's story of young love, impossible choices, and abbreviated life lives on through Annie. The ivy-coloured house with its right-side chimney, the refrigerator shopping trip, the streets of half-remembered city, the falling streetlights all persist as more than memories. The living personal proof that consciousness survives bodily death, that love transcends lifetimes, and that our most difficult experiences shape not just one life, but many. As Annie continues wrestling with questions of contact, closure, and purpose, she embodies the complex reality of remembered reincarnation. Her story challenges us to consider what secrets might we carry from lives before. What unfinished business calls to us across the divide of death? And how do we honour both our current existence and the echoes of who we've been? In the end, Annie's journey suggests that remembering past lives isn't about dwelling in history, but about healing across time. It's about understanding that some connections are too profound for one lifetime to contain, and some lessons too important to learn just once. Most importantly, it's about recognizing that even our deepest wounds can become sources of wisdom, compassion, and service to others walking similar paths through the mystery of consciousness that refuses to be confined by a single birth or death.